6:30 on Thursday, December 19th, 2019, and this is a special meeting of the Public Hospital District Number 4 King County Board of Commissioners regular meeting and a special meeting agenda. Would you rise with me for call for flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please do the roll call?
President Norris.
Here.
Vice President Herron.
Here.
Secretary Spikers.
Here.
Commissioner Pollard.
Here.
Commissioner Havner.
Here.
I would like to make a change before we approve the agenda. I would like to take old business number 2 off of the agenda, if that's okay. Can I get a motion for that?
The 1 and 2 on the old business?
Just, yes, 2.
I make that motion, made it after speaking to Mr. Pollard, Commissioner Pollard, and we've agreed to sit down and talk about this outside the presence of this board.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, I think that's the accommodation and understanding we reached.
No.
All right. So do I have a second?
A second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we vote. All those in favor of removing that from the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes, so we will not be discussing that tonight.
You just need to adopt your agenda now. Otherwise, you could have adopted it as amended, but you still need to adopt your agenda.
Okay. So shall we adopt this agenda as amended? Yes, Commissioner Pollard.
I would, I'm just reflecting on this business of old business resolution number 557-1219, approval of superintendent CEO compensation. You know, if that had said evaluation, then I think it would be appropriate for this board to deal with that. But we're going to have a new board starting the 1st of January, and that board is going to be looking forward, and therefore I think it would be more appropriate for the board to take that, bring up that discussion in January. So I move to table old business number 1 until January 2020.
My comment to that is we also have to do an evaluation, which we have not done, and we were going to do that this evening as well.
And the executive
Evaluation.
session.
Yeah, go over her evaluation.
Where is the evaluation?
Executive session here to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30, 1.110.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to have to stay there.
Madam Chairman, you have a motion that has not been seconded, so if there's no second, it would die for lack of a second.
All right, is there a second? We don't have one, so do we? No. All right, no second. All righty, so we'll leave that as is. Any other discussions about the agenda? Did we vote on the agenda? All those in favor of the agenda say aye as amended.
I don't have a motion to approve the agenda.
Oh.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
No, there was a motion now made and seconded to approve the agenda as amended.
I thought so.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
I didn't hear any motion.
Okay.
Moved and seconded to remove item number 2.
yeah, we did that.
And just as you called for the motion to approve the agenda, Commissioner Pollard made this motion.
Oh, okay.
So I'll report whoever moved and seconded.
Okay.
So,
And I second.
Okay.
David and Emma, thank you.
is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it goes with the ayes. And we did roll call, did we? Yeah, okay. Okay, I don't have any particular things to offer, so, at this time. But I think Dr. Rickott might.
Always have something. All right. So, and you have my written report, and so I'll read through it and add some extra along the way. So we do have 3 thank you notes to share with you this month. One, thank you so much for helping with the bill for my endoscopy. It was amazing how you stepped in, heard, and understood my concerns and then fixed it. Having someone like you offering support and compassion makes everything else a little easier to deal with and a lot more affordable as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, now here's the next one. Snoqualmie Valley Hospital staff, thank you so much for the gorgeous plant you sent. We appreciate all of your kindness and support. It was so nice to meet many of you at the service. My father was so grateful for all of the care and compassion you shared with him, and the whole family is so thankful for that as well. You are very special, and that plant was purchased by staff members. My name is Margaret, and I had the privilege of being a patient at your facility in September. I want to thank all of your staff for the excellent care I received. All of your staff treated me with the utmost respect and gave me care as if I was the only patient they had. All of the nurses were so kind and thoughtful of my needs. I just want you to know you have a wonderful staff, and words cannot express my appreciation and my thankfulness for the treatment I received. I was impressed with each team member, the pharmacists, the nursing assistants, the rehabilitation therapists, housekeeping, lab services, and the dietary services. The dietary services were awesome. They met my dietary needs and were so kind and thoughtful. Thank you again. P.S. I'm doing very well. I'm now walking 5 miles a day.
Awesome.
Basically.
That's quite accomplishment. 5 miles.
I want one of those diets.
Exactly. Is that a hint to us?
Can we get on the meal plan?
So in the area of community events, this month we hosted the Snow Valley Chamber After Hours event. So this is an evening event that the Chamber does on a monthly basis. And so we asked to be the host in December, mostly because we have such a lovely lobby in the wintertime. There were approximately 40 attendees here. And we had several stations set about on the lobby. We had one that was to refresh their hands-only CPR skill. We had another that was set up to help them learn stop the bleed techniques. We had another set up which was how to understand your hospital district taxes, which our 2 financial gurus over there read. And I'm just going to pause and tell you, it was so creative. It was 3 gingerbread houses, a big one, a medium one, and a small one. And each of them had kind of an estimated value of if your house was this much, here's how much your hospital district taxes are, and here's how that number is calculated. And so many people were astounded that.
Didn't know you were so creative, Steve.
Oh, Patrick.
Patrick.
Yes.
Very impressive.
My daughters.
Yeah, many people made comment about that display. We also accepted donations for non-perishable food items, and those will be taken to the North Bend Food Bank. And then we had another station where they constructed a holiday card for local seniors that are living in isolation. And so as board members, you are represented by Commissioner Carter. So she was here and making the rounds, saying hello to everybody, so that was great. Really positive responses from the chamber members who participated. We had a couple of other community events this month. We supported one of the Cub Scout packs, 1776. They were doing a disability sensitivity learning event. So wanting to understand what it was like to live with a disability. So we were able to help them by providing some wheelchairs and some crutches and some other things so that they could mimic a disability, so that they could understand some of those challenges, like opening a door and getting up and down from a chair and tying your shoes, things of that sort. So really a creative and important event that their leadership was taking them through. And then we also hosted a Daisy Scout troop, and that was for an introduction to healthcare roles and hand hygiene exercise that they did. And I think that was an adventure for those staff members who are working to have 10 or 12 first graders. Legislatively, I met with Senator Mark Mullet. I wanted to take the opportunity to convey my appreciation to him He took a phone call from me during this last legislative session and really stepped forward and supported some key issues. And I wanted to also make sure he realized that we were here and that we were available should he need any insight, especially from a rural hospital or a public hospital district as this next session gets started. There are several new legislative actions that are taking place or go into effect on January 1st. Some of these include the Washington Paid Family Leave Act, the patient liability estimates requirements, the nurse meal and rest breaks, and while that particular legislation doesn't apply to us this year, it applies to us next year as a critical access hospital, we're already jumping in and being a participant with that, as well as the expanded definition of surrogate decision makers. Those are some of the big things that
Could
came
you
out.
speak briefly on that topic? What does that mean,
Which one?
the surrogate decision maker?
That's the scenario where if you are unable to speak for yourself, who can I as the caregiver turn to ask to speak for you if you haven't identified someone already?
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
because we already had a provision
Yeah,
similar
you-
to that.
Yeah, if the patient has already identified who they want to speak for them, then that's the person who does it. But in the scenario that they have not identified a spokesperson for themselves, there's a hierarchy that as caregivers we go down, so spouse and children and aunts and
And
nieces
can go down
nephews.
as far as the caregiver, huh?
And so what got added were friends and close acquaintances, because there have always been relatives and only relatives. And so it added that's an option and added some thresholds that need to be met so that it's clear that they really are capable and have insight and are acting in the best
That's
interest.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it was good legislation to pass. So these new legislative actions, we've already implemented them, or we are ready for them to be activated on the 3rd. I told you earlier that our community health needs assessment is now in hand, and so it will be the core focus of our January work study. You can really jump in there. And then tonight represents our farewell to Commissioner Pollard, who's been here for 8 years. And so I wanted to take the moment while I was speaking to extend from the hospital's perspective a recognition of these contributions, and to make sure that he was recognized as always. And I wrote several things, assured that we always considered alternative perspectives to the issues at hand, making sure that we think about it from multiple directions, always advocating for a deeper understanding and appreciation of the benefits that Robert's rules apply in a group setting such as this, and was very reliably and consistently the voice of his peers. So we do wish you adieu and good health, Commissioner Pollard.
Thank you very much.
And then you've also, in along the same vein, received an invitation to a retirement celebration for Steve, and that's on January 7th at 1 o'clock, so it's right after the Finance Committee meeting. But you all will continue to see him because he'll be participating in all of the affiliation work that we do. And then the one thing that I wanted to conclude on is really more of a somber note, and that's about the influenza wave that is now arriving. We're really seeing a rapid rise in our clinics and emergency room of influenza-like illnesses. Only about 10% of those are testing positive for the flu right now. It's type B strain, so that's the one that's less likely to cause complications, but you're extremely sick anyway. And just reassurances that all of our staff who enter the doors to work, whether it be in the hospital or our clinics, that they have been immunized. There is not an exception to that. We really have taken the position of refusing to be part of the transmission chain that could contribute to patient harm or even death. And I think we are all kind of chilled at the storyline of the small child in King County who has died. And while we don't have any additional information about that, that child was likely exposed because someone hadn't been immunized and could have potentially been protected. So we continue to advocate for all of our patients to get immunized, and in fact put a message out this afternoon on all of our social media as well as through Living Snoqualmie about the concern and that they can walk into any of our doors and get an immunization just on a walk-in basis.
in addition to the child, they announced that 2 adults had died. And you think you were aware of that?
Yeah, that was a.
And I'd just like to mention that when people die of the flu, it's often not the flu they die of, it is pneumonia.
That's true.
And it's very important for people to get their pneumonia shots. And then I see things like, it's very important for grandparents to get whooping cough shots because the little children cannot get those shots. But the grandparent or someone can expose them, and it's a very difficult situation. I just hope we can increase our public communication on all of these shots that the public needs to get to protect themselves. Thank you.
Well, I have to tell you at this point that my husband came in with a very bad cough and was tested for influenza in our ER. They did an awesome job, and he is doing great right now. So he got the medications he needed, but yeah, it's out there.
For accommodating a long presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. McDuff? And we will move on to Skip Hauser, our legal advice.
The
Advisor.
yellow sheet man.
The yellow page, yes.
Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. As you know, this is the Robert's Rules of Order 5-minute time period that we have to discuss various Robert's Rules. Tonight, you're going to be hearing about rights and obligations in voting. And in particular, it starts out in discussing one person, one vote. That's obvious, of course, but it's fundamental to parliamentary law. And I'll just remind you, this is going on now 3 years where former CEO Parker asked me to do this because Commissioner Pollard had planted the seed and said, you know, we ought to talk about Robert's Rules, just not always argue about it. And so this is more of an educational opportunity. So Commissioner Pollard, much appreciation to you as you leave this rostrum this evening, that we have now instituted something that you planted a seed, and it is germinated and now flowered into this.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney, and I did appreciate your joke about the attorneys. You can tell others that.
Prior to the meeting, we did discuss some jokes about attorneys. I'll keep those to myself and Mr. Pollard. It's interesting that an individual member's right to vote may not be transferred to another. For example, use of proxy. So you have to show up and you got to vote. You can't have a proxy. That's not allowed under Robert's Rules, and nor do your bylaws allow it, nor do the statutes. There's a right of abstention, and that was one of the first issues that we discussed, abstention, because Mr. Pollard and I had a little bit of a disagreement over whether you could really abstain or not. And it's pretty clear. Roberts told us that it's the duty of every member who has an opinion on a question to express it by his vote. He can abstain since he cannot be compelled to vote. So you can't be compelled to vote. And I saw last night in the impeachment proceedings that in Congress they allowed the person to vote present. I'd never heard of such a thing. And it's not in Robert's Rules. But also, as I reminded you before, Congress does not follow Robert's Rules of Orders. They have their own. They have their own congressional rules. They don't have Robert's. But we do. You can abstain from voting on a question of direct or personal interest, and you should not vote on questions that affect oneself. And in particular, there's a municipal code of ethics that you are all compelled when you took your oath to abide by, so you couldn't do that. On page 2, interruption of votes. Interruptions during the taking of a vote are permitted only before any member is actually voted, unless, as sometimes occurs in ballot voting, other business is being transacted during the voting or tabulating. You don't ever tabulate your vote, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. Also, this is a good reminder that a member has no right to explain his vote during voting. And again, I apologize, we use the pronoun his because Robert didn't believe that there was women at the time he wrote this. So you can always insert her or his. So you can't explain your vote during voting, which would be the same as debate. So you get the vote. You don't get to provide an explanation. You can change one's vote up to the time the result is announced. After that, you can make the change only by unanimous consent of the assembly. So if you had asked the council, the board, you could say, I want to change my vote, but I want a unanimous consent in order to do that. Otherwise, you can't change your vote. It's been tabulated. There are also time limits on the efforts to challenge, retake, or change a vote, and those are identified there. You can raise a point of order regarding the conduct of the vote, demand a division of the assembly, move to retake the vote under another method, move for recapitulation of a roll call vote, or request unanimous consent to change his vote, as mentioned above. The last piece is the Assembly's prerogative in judging voting procedures. The Assembly itself is the judge of all questions arising that are incidental to the voting or the counting of the votes. In an election by ballot, for example, the tellers should refer to the Assembly for decision on all questions on which there is uncertainty. Anybody know what a teller is?
Counter of votes.
He's the counter of votes. Commissioner Paul, of course, would know this, because, but they're also known as a scrutinizer, a poll watcher, a challenger, or a checker. But they are not polling agents or counting agents. Those represent the candidates. So now you know a little bit more about Robert's rules tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes,
A member has no right to explain his
That's the
votes
same
during
one I-
voting.
during the voting, correct.
Has
Does the
no-
member have a right to or opportunity to explain his vote outside of the voting period? Well, for example, if you have the committee of the whole, or like we use a good of the order, that's where a person could explain his
Exactly.
or her vote, right?
Yes, under good order, you could say, I would like to just provide a little background or context to the reason I voted for or did vote against this last motion, correct?
Okay,
You just
so-
can't do it during the vote. You can do it prior to the vote. You say, I'm going to vote for this motion for the following reasons. Of course, that's what you want to do. You want to give that. But once the vote is taken, the debate's closed. You can't explain your vote, and you don't get to explain it afterwards. But under the good of the order, which we have on every agenda, you could say then, I just wanted to, explain to the rest of the body why I voted a certain way.
But you can't explain in advance, I'm going to vote against this because.
Because of, absolutely. Yeah, and a motion is made, you can say as part of the debate, I'm not going to support this for these following reasons, or I will support it for these following. And you want to give an explanation typically.
Thank you.
Further questions?
I just
Yes.
wanted clarification, because I'm not sure whether I heard what you said, Commissioner Paul. A member has no right to change his vote up to the time, but he can change only by the unanimous consent, because it's.
Correct. So up
Here
to
it
the
says
time
a
the
member
vote.
has a right.
Yeah.
It didn't say has no right.
Yeah.
So I wasn't
So you're looking at the third one, which are the time limits?
changing one's vote.
Mhm.
Changing
Member may
one's
raise a
vote.
point of order regarding it. Let's see.
Don't
After
you-
the result of the vote has been announced, members can still propose or demand certain actions. Let's see, if any of these actions apply. I'm just trying to find out.
No, it's changing one's vote here.
The
A
one
member has
above
a
it.
Oh,
right.
changing one vote. Yeah, a member does have a right to change their vote.
Has
up
a
to the
right or
time-
has no right?
No, has a right.
Has a right,
Has a right,
okay.
up till the announcement. So if you're going through the roll call,
Okay.
but President Norris has not announced whether it has been achieved or not, a majority vote, you could say, Madam Chair, I move to change my vote,
I see.
because it not has yet been announced. Up to the time it's announced. After it's been announced, you can only change it if there's unanimous consent. Each and every member must vote to allow a change of vote. Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor of consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's done. So do we, I guess we go to committee reports. Finance Committee, that would be David Spikers.
All right, thank you. We did lose money this month, not a whole lot, and we are below budget this month by $115,000. There are some reasons. Our census was below like 14%, which plays a big, if you recall in the past, we talked about when we have a high census, we have lots of ancillary services in the application service department that we do make a little bit of money on, and that's how we end up in a positive basis at the end of the month when that happens. We also had some costs, and the payments that we're making were for professional fees, for surgery clinics, housekeeping, and then there were some payments associated with reference lab and sleep lab. And I assume that those were like quarterly or one-time type of payments for the sleep lab and the,
Those are the revenue sharing payments.
oh,
So we still have a positive bottom line on those programs, but we have to do some revenue sharing.
Well, it's below the expense variances, and we have payments except, so. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's why our expenses were higher than normal,
right,
but.
because it's a new program, we had to budget that.
And I'm just wondering if those were monthly, or they're yearly, or,
They're monthly payments.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, you have to spend money to make money.
which brings me to the idea that we're up in revenue a little bit this month, but we were up in expenses a little bit more. For the year, most important, we are above budget in revenue, which is really something that we were trying to strive for. We think it's going to be $38 million this year, and
Probably.
projected around 44 next year. We have, if you all remember, maybe none of you do, but maybe Kevin does, back in the old days, we had revenue of about 10, 12 million. So we're going to be almost 4 times that in about 12 years. So we're above budget by about 850,000 or so. We are above in expenses, however, and some of them are some of the startup expenses. But I do want to point out the 3 programs that everyone keeps going, what were those programs that came up? And we started a sleep lab, a reference lab, and a primary source verification services for the collaborative. Primary source verification isn't a lot of money, but it's still some money. And anytime you make a profit on anything, especially with a small hospital, it's a good thing. The reference lab and the sleep lab really didn't demand a whole lot more in startup costs. And the sleep lab was like 5,000 or something like that, incredibly low amount. ROI on that was like 3 months, 2 months, something like that. It's incredibly quick. And the reference lab, we have our pharmacy department and our lab department that does not have to hire another person, but we make our net on this, I think, is about $1 million a year on this new line. Pretty close?
Somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, I'm hedging my bet.
I remember it's 1.2.
I think it's gonna be about 7, actually.
Gross is 1.2 million, right?
Yeah, and then you got a net down.
All right, so that's pretty good.
It's a good return. At the low point.
And the sleep lab probably, what are we on, a couple $100,000 a year, maybe?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
and then we have that, then we do have the pharmacy program, the 304B.
340B.
340, something
We
number.
just got
340B
board this
program
year.
that we make about $250,000 on, with really no costs involved. So all of those programs have really evolved in the last 2 years. And we just obtained the Kroger contract. So now we're going to have Fred Meyer and the Kroger
CFC and Fred Meyer.
as part of that program, which will bring in some money. We just, the last 4 or 5 months, right? So all of this is developed into what I see as a positive bottom line at the end of the year, and probably next year too, the way it's looking. Even though our expenses are going to go up quite a bit next year, we're going to have another $5 million in expenses. But our revenue is going to be up about almost $6 million, the way we're looking at it. So hopefully, outpatient services will continue to grow, and all looks good. Now, going to accounts receivable. I had asked the finance department, I had about a series of about 8 questions, very intricate questions for our, how are we keeping track of these accounts receivable? And so we had a pretty in-depth presentation. Patrick came in and talked, and we're going to bring this to the board when we have a little bit more time next month, and we'll be able to explain how these accounts are actually derived. We actually were able to decrease AR this month, and that accounted for most of the $800,000 in net gain in cash. So that's a good thing. Whenever you have good low AR, you usually get a lot of good cash coming in. So we're way above all days in cash in hand as mandated by our bond covenants. As you can see at the bottom of page 3, everything's in compliance. We haven't been out of compliance at all. It wasn't really our fault, it was just the setup of the original agreement and covenants. So, so I guess next month we will probably hear more on the AR. Does anybody have any questions at all?
I don't understand the unrestricted cash increased 871, and then there's receivables decreased by 766. Any explanation for the cash receivables decreasing?
Yeah, we collect, we put some procedural, Patrick,
Lower
go
level
ahead,
services.
you're the expert on that, I don't know why I'm talking.
We put some emphasis on some follow-up of some old accounts that our billing company had not had much of a eye on before, and that we were also able to make some catch-up by the state. Actually, we had a large Medicaid back, and they were able to catch up to us. They've been behind. They are behind. Unfortunately, Medicaid and TRICARE, both of them are really far behind processing payments, which is out of our control right now. So that's where. So they made some catch-up with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that, but we've actually, this has started about 6 months ago. We started analyzing each department. What's the AR for each department and what's going on for each department. It's pretty surprising because Medicare is always right around 45 days, you know, give or take a couple, like clock. Commercials can take
90 days.
Can take 90 days.
Yep.
Yeah.
But our departments, I was thinking, you know, the clinics must be way behind, but they weren't. They were under 45 days.
Clinics are usually in the 20s.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's ER. Actually, Steve and I worked on this to take a look at that and break it down by departments to see where they were, and you know, looking at ER was one of the things, and we were able to find out where the denials were coming from by the departments and do some focus areas that way.
And the biggest thing I think we've accommodated in the last year especially is Medicare Advantage. The baby boomers are implementing a lot of Medicare Advantage now. We get paid good, but it takes us a long time to collect on. There are more procedures to collect on Medicare Advantage. And the percentage of our inpatient has gone, I think it was as much as 13% at one time. And now I think maybe around 10 or a little bit less than 10 now this month, but that makes a big difference. So, anyway.
What percentage is Medicare Advantage now, approximately?
It's under 10% this month.
Yeah, yeah. Historically, we have been in the 80 to 85% Medicare on our inpatient side, and that's since about 2017, that's steadily gone down, and this year it's gone down an even bigger percentage. We were at 80 in January, and we were down to 65.
The advertising is sure
Oh,
pushing
yeah,
Medicare
yeah.
Advantage, and I think that's going to grow.
Oh, it
Yeah,
is.
and like Commissioner
There's just
Spiker
dire
said,
disadvantage.
yep, they pay us our rate, but there are more hoops to jump through in order to get that rate.
So we're all actually, aren't we not thinking about allowing somebody, well, that's for our commercials, I guess, to go into our system and track and be able to do a quicker turnaround on commercial payments too. We're thinking about it.
Yeah.
A lot of other organizations do it, but we still are analyzing. So.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that might reduce, we don't have as big a commercial payer, not as a whole, not as a percentage,
Mhm.
that maybe a big hospital has where there could be a $10 million commercial
Or different
payment that
demographic
could,
as well.
yeah, so we might have 50,000 maybe a month, or maybe less, and we get that quicker, we want them into our system, you know, those are things we're all looking at.
Tracking it by department is a great thing, I think. Have you ever looked at it by the reimbursement code, by the actual transactions? And isolated those which are the slowest?
Mhm.
fastest?
Yeah. Yeah, the outpatient side pays pretty quick, other than ER, because those are larger claims and they get adjudicated a little differently. But most of our other outpatient services that go out via CPT code generally get paid under that 40-day. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Be interesting to see some of those trends, what are they actually out of CT codes? And what's longer and what's quicker? And can we play to that? And services offered.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
You have to code according to what?
No, I understand.
Yes.
No, I
Yeah,
understand that. But letting the public know that you offer that service as well.
Absolutely.
Through PR.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We're obviously not the only hospital that's facing this problem with the Medicare Advantage. And I wonder whether this might be worth discussing with the insurance commissioner. To somehow figure out a way that the reimbursement involves a little bit of lost interest or something. I don't know.
We're a weird animal sometimes as far as that, of how our specific niche. So it's good, but it's different, right? And so
We're a small animal.
whereas, exactly.
We're a small animal.
Yeah, we have to do a lot of educations for the plans themselves on the proper rules, and is how we have to send them the CMS rules that we are a critical access hospital, we should be paid according to this way, you need to adjudicate us this way, and so that's where the hang up happens in the billing process and things like that. So, yeah.
You know, Patrick, I have really neglected, I don't know if any of you know that, but Patrick has been here for like 15 years. And he's worked in this department. In what capacity could you explain to the board so that they can have your full trust?
Sure. I started
Because I
out
think
as,
it's important.
yeah, I started out as a biller, and I was billing manager, then revenue cycle director, so.
So he's on, he knows what's going on. So he knows the pulse, so we can rely on him.
He can do it in his sleep, huh?
It does.
You wouldn't want to.
Is there any other questions at all? And if not, I have a motion to approve the warrants as requested. And I must have a sheet here
They're
somewhere.
right.
Oh, no, I have a regular sheet I have to sign.
Oh, yeah.
Or, there it is. Only do the original. I have a motion to approve warrants in the sum of $3,047,202.91 at this time.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I would like to take advantage of this opportunity to explain my vote before I vote. As we've learned tonight, we can do. And that is that my friend Steve Daniel told me, Pollard, you have only got one more opportunity to vote no on the payment of the vouchers. I don't want to disappoint, so that's why I'm going to vote no.
I think what I said is you have one more opportunity to vote to pay me, and
So,
The motion passes.
all right, thank you.
So you can still change your vote by unanimous consent?
Oh, we started getting into this unanimous consent issue, I might have to run.
All right. Next on the agenda is, let's see, I gotta see where I am here. I think it's medical committee.
Yeah, well, Commissioner Harvey should have given this report, but he didn't make it.
Ah.
But I will give this report. Under community, most of this, a repeat from Superintendent Kim Whitcup, but I will read the highlights, the yellow one. So we have supported the local club's health troop number 1776, activity around disability sensitivity, education by loaning them a wheelchair, a walker, a crutches, etc. Also supported the Daisy Troop first grade healthcare experience around roles of nurses and providers. I think that's a great, where they can role play. Okay, and under the emergency, I'm just reading the yellow highlights here. There's an airlift that occurred on November 20th in collaboration with the Airlift Northwest and Snoqualmie Fire. This was coordinated during the ED Nurses Skills Day, so they can incorporate multiple trauma skills as well as airlift processes. And there's intake, social work, utilization review. There is a new CMS discharge planning final requirements that have been published. We are already in compliance by nature of our usual processes. No changes necessary other than updating policy language. On infection preview, the staff flu immunization compliance rates are exceptional, except for one staff member who was dismissed for failure to comply, so that's not bad. 5 staff members have not worked since November 1st. When they are ready to return their documentation, they will have to be in place before they can return. Okay, now we're following the letter of the law here. Still, under clinics, we're still constructing occupational medicine service line. A local company wants to serve as the beta testers to start this month. Anticipate go live by end of first quarter to other local businesses. And medical staff, annual dinner, November 12th, was well attended. 2020 officers are Chief of Staff, current is Dr. Dwayne Anderson, Chief of Staff, Dr. David Kim, Chief of Staff-elect, Afshin Bidari, Member at Large, Gabriel Poulon, another Member at Large, John Sindorf. And that's it for the medical committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for medical committee? Commissioner Pollard.
I think this fits in the medical committee. You know, when I call hospitals and then maybe I'm referred to doctors within the hospital and all of this, the first thing they say is, if this is a medical emergency, hang up now and dial 911. I haven't seen that kind of response on Snoqualmie hospital telephones, but I think it's something to consider.
It should be, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's something,
Somehow,
yeah.
numbers that I've called have not offered that. So, okay, it's taken care of, that's fine.
Be my other
Try it again. You'll hear it.
Pardon? Try again?
You got it.
Well,
You
I
got it.
can't hear it worked on first.
Okay, moving right along. We now have facilities committee, and that would be me. Old business that we've been dealing with, which is really good, is following up on Peake County Search and Rescue East Campus. Improvement, the request for a lease extension was reviewed in work study on 11/21, but no action was taken. Legal counsel Skip Hauser is preparing an addendum document that will be distributed by Dr. Whitcott the week prior to December 19th board meeting. Have you seen that? Okay, it's in the packets. Facilities committee will be prepared to make a recommendation to the board at the December meeting. So that's today. New business, maintenance issues, none reported. Facility usage, Below is a list of community room uses for December 2019. A lot of these are regulars. Encompass Leadership Team Meeting monthly, Care Point Clinic monthly leadership team meeting, Snoqualmie Rotary monthly, Daisy Girl Scout Troop 46808 monthly, and Encompass Leadership Retreat December 4th. In addition to the usage listed above, it is reported to the committee that on December 15th, the Daisy Girl Scout Troop 46802 will be meeting at the hospital to learn about the work that doctors and nurses do. They will have an interactive learning opportunity and will complete the work on a community project for their badges. How'd that go? Did it go? Is there anything you want to share about that? Anything that would be?
It was really interesting to see how knowledgeable first graders are in their questions that they ask. Very, very thoughtful questions about how things work and what people do. And I was very glad that people had recommended we have a hands-on exercise for them, or we would have lost our audience in short time. They all got disposable gowns and masks with an instruction on why we use them, and stethoscopes, and they get their blood pressures taken. That was pretty, lots of learning.
Pretty awesome, thank you. Environmental care, emergency management. The practice drill for a patient evacuation was held on November 20th with Airlift Northwest. Fire safety management, the audits and documentation paperwork is up to date. Hazardous material waste management, there was a follow-up from the Department of Ecology, DOE, for compliance. The changes are in place. Medical equipment management, a bed survey was conducted, which identified several mattresses needing replaced. Materials management is working on the biomed, and all preventative maintenance are up to date. The replacement is for normal wear and tear. Physical plant, the snow management plan for 2020 has been updated with current vendor, as well as evaluation of a new removal plan with potential new vendors. Safe patient handling, no report. Safety management, no report. Security management, no report. And Commissioner Herron asked if the building has a ladder to access the roof, citing concerns about theft of the items from the rooftop. Access to the rooftop is gained by internal stairs and is both key and access card secure. I thought that was an interesting question. I really did. Utilities management, electrical supply monitoring for cleaner power to the CT, CAT scan, and MRI has been done. This is due to periodic surges experienced in recent months. There were 2 areas identified that turned hot, but undetermined as to the reason. Work continues to further understand the reasons and explore possible solutions. Next meeting will be Monday, December 23rd at 8:30 in the morning. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Pollard.
Pardon me, go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you. The facility usage, I think
Yes.
it's fantastic. And curious as to how long has first of all, rooms do they use?
Upstairs, same one we were in.
Thank you.
Sometimes down here.
Is there a charge? And what's the process by which you secure that room?
Nonprofit, they have to be
People there,
nonprofit.
Okay. And is there like a sign-in sheet, or you check with Val and see the calendar is?
We have a usage request form
Uh-huh.
that is approved and then it's
Yeah.
scheduled.
Fantastic.
There's a
Some of the rooms-
policy around usage, so there's criteria that have to be met.
Uh-huh.
Mostly there's criteria about what you cannot be doing as part of this.
So
No
it's not
policy.
it's not refined just to, or pertained just to like nonprofits, it's to the
You-
public?
It cannot be used for the purpose of making money.
Yeah.
So you can't be selling Amway in there.
Right.
I've been for that a long time.
Need a second off.
Or party lights.
That's good. Thank you.
Right, folks.
And then this probably was more for the medical, but I wouldn't think of it at the moment. The infection control team, if you will, is that all part of the
That's clever.
oversight of the medical committee?
No.
More likely, or is that more facilities?
Quality.
Very good, very good. So what is our infectious control team, if you will, or person?
Well, we have a single nurse infection preventionist,
Uh-huh.
but she's the one who is point, but the whole organization is a participant in the infection
Sure.
prevention process. So,
Everyone's a member.
yeah, everyone's a member of that. So it's multifaceted. And so the reason why there wasn't an immediate answer to your question is because part of infection prevention happens at the facilities level.
Mhm.
There's certain things about our physical structure
Sure.
that contributes, and then on the medical side, there's things that we do from a medical perspective,
Mhm.
choices that we make for items that we acquire, the policies that we have in place for our staff. That's the flu immunization. We have a mandatory flu immunization policy.
Mhm.
So that's why the answer isn't a single. It really is distributed across the whole organization.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions?
Likewise.
Commissioner Pollard?
I hate to preempt my friend here who's in the insurance business, but the question automatically comes when you're allowing various groups to use the hospital facility. What is our protection for liability, and where do we check that and so forth?
When they sign up when they ask to use the room, one of the requirements is they have to show us their insurance coverage.
Their insurance coverage?
Yes.
You require a certificate of insurance.
Certificate,
from them.
additional,
Really?
Yes.
additional.
But that's
Do
very
we need to
standard.
have also insurance on the liability in case they complain that they were injured because of us?
We have,
Oh, yeah, we have-
Just our
liability.
general liability.
We
We
have-
don't need any special for these visiting groups. Okay.
Yeah. No, we have
The other thing I wanted to ask is, I read where there's an on-ramp now open
Yeah,
down here. And I was wondering if, I didn't get a chance to notice the difference in traffic, but is there any comment from the facilities committee or others about how that's affecting our traffic flow? It would seem that that's a wonderful thing.
I think you'd have to get a traffic engineer or somebody like that out here to do.
I don't know any good one myself.
so far.
I
we
do.
I have been using that, so far it's been really
Since the
good. It's
reopen,
been
so
very,
Yeah,
the
that's
topic
true.
of conversation.
That's good, because, people were coming up here, going around our parking lot and then going back
Yes,
to Highway
yeah.
18. So this really should improve things.
It should. It
Thank
should.
you.
All right, so where are we now on the agenda? Any other questions? All right. We are going to be going to an executive session. The Board of Commissioners is authorized to meet in executive session under RCW 42.30.110 to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employee. However, subject to discussion by a governing body of salaries, wages, and other conditions of employment to be generally applied within the agency shall occur in a meeting open to the public. And when the governing body elects to take final action, hiring, setting the salary of an individual employee or class of employees, or discharging and disciplining an employee, the action shall be taken in a meeting open to the public. Pursuant to this authority, the Board will now go into an executive session to discuss these matters. It is anticipated that the executive session will be concluded in approximately 30 minutes, with no final action having been taken. So, I would like those of you that are visitors to please, are we going to stay in this room? Is that the plan, I think? Yeah, we're going to stay in this room, and others are going to leave, and I guess we're going to be 30 minutes?
Oh, yeah, she actually called me.
Oh,
Yeah.
So,
We're, It is now 8:18, and the public has joined us. And next on our agenda, I expect that we are going to get a motion.
I'll make a motion at this time. We've been in executive session, and we've had 2 prior meetings, and we've been able to track data and come to some objective findings based on quality and potential for making budget this year. And there is a resolution 5571219. I would like to make a
Point of
motion.
order, we're not at that point in the agenda.
Yeah, we are. We're under old business, right?
Old business.
No, that action item takes place under new business.
Yeah, Madam Chair, as you know, your unique setup identifies it both under old business and then under action
Yeah.
items. So you can discuss and make your motion, but you wouldn't take
We
action.
still have discussion.
Sure, absolutely. You can make your motion and then take action on it, take your vote
There's still opportunity for discussion.
under the resolution.
So anyway, my motion is to adopt this resolution at
That's
5571219 with it amended to amend the February 2020 date to allow to be based on making the budget of 192,000, and that means the 2019 budget. So there's two instances on that page 2 and page 3 where it would have to be changed. And it should be always based on the 2019 salary, the 10%, or the 5% on both of those. So I think the resolution's a little, kind of needs to be rewritten a little bit to clarify. And there's 3 provisions in the resolution. One is a 5% based on the quality achievements that have been documented objectively in past meetings. A 5% bonus based on achieving the budget of 192,000, I believe that's some odd dollars. And then there's also a COLA that is commensurate with or equal to the district employees, which would take effect on January 1st, 2020. I think that's how this reads. Okay. So those are the things that I believe the resolution would have to be amended or
Well, the resolution hasn't been adopted, so we could modify it now and interlineate that. I believe that it identifies in a whereas, the last whereas on page 2,
Yeah.
where it would receive a payment of 5% bonus to be paid in February 2020. I understand the interlineation would be changed from February to
It's achieved.
the date. I think we want to make sure it's there as soon as possible, as soon as we achieve, or as soon as the final budget is,
Achieved.
or the final calculation for the budget is known. It could be March, it could be April, so.
So I guess you could delete the February 2020 and say that 5% bonus to be paid if the district's 2019 year-end published budget net income is achieved.
Correct, that would be.
Yeah.
So we would just take out the Feb 2020, be paid if. So I would delete for the signed copy the 3 words in February 2020.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure it's there
If the
as
district
soon as
of
possible.
February.
And then under section 3, where it is resolved,
Yeah.
it would again take out those words that says to be paid in the month of February, and I would just say it would be paid. So it would read, should the district achieve or exceed the 2019 budgeted net income as determined through the district year-end financial statements, the interim district superintendent, chief executive officer, Dr. Kimberly Whitcock, shall be compensated further with a 5% bonus to be paid. And we would take out in the month of February, and it would not be paid at all if it wasn't achieved. And if it was achieved, it could be paid upon a determination that it has been achieved.
Yeah,
Right.
that
That's
sounds good.
upon, I mean, or the
Upon,
first,
You could say the first regular pay cycle.
or the first regular pay
Pay cycle.
cycle.
I could add that if
Okay.
you'd so desire. I mean, you're not voting on this motion, we're just drafting right
Right.
now in a
Right.
discussion.
The first regular pay.
I'll put compensated further with a 5% bonus to be paid in the next, is that what your language
Yeah,
was?
the next regular pay period.
In the next
following
regular
The information.
pay period. Because you've already previously, in the sentence, identified it would be as determined upon year end.
Right, there you
So I think Valerie's doing the interlineations, as am I, and when you are ready to consider this for a motion and vote, these would have the two interlineations in this. Madam Chairman, there's a motion, there's been discussion, that motion hasn't been seconded, and you should not take action until later in the agenda under action items. You can discuss now and debate, but you would not want to take a vote till you get to the action items.
So
As
it's really,
as Commissioner
the
Paul
idea that
identified.
he was making a motion was really not proper. It was, I would like to discuss this more, right? He shouldn't have made a motion at that point, right?
Right, it's old business. You could either just have discussion, or you could make a motion and a second and have discussion. Either one.
But on the action item,
That's where you would take a
number
vote.
one, somebody, when we read it, we should read it with the amended version.
Correct.
Okay,
When
so
you
that,
get to
before
that,
we vote.
when you get to the resolution action, you would then make sure that you're reading and understanding the resolution to be voted upon.
All right.
Then you would have a vote. But at this point, and it's just the way you lay your agendas
Yeah,
out. I've noticed it before. Sometimes you want to take action up above under old or new business when you have already listed as an action item. So,
Okay.
unique the way you do this. I'll be kind.
go. Okay.
Okay.
So I think, do I, second maybe? Second, based
Do we have a motion?
on
Is
that?
there-
I make the motion based on the
Oh.
amended resolution.
Okay,
At this
but we're
point.
not taking action right
No,
now.
no.
And would you repeat the motion?
Please.
Oh, my
The
God.
motion is to adopt Resolution 5571-219 has been amended through discussion today.
A second?
Now,
Now you're just going to have
Any-
discussion and debate, and
Any
then
further
hold off till
discussion?
the action item.
Is there any other discussion?
We're going to have further discussion at the action item point, are we not?
Yes,
That's where I would say the serious discussion should come in.
yes, you can do that. It can be discussed under old business, it's an agenda topic, and it can be discussed in more discussion and more detail under the action item.
Now, as far as discussion goes, let me just mention again for the public this time, that we've gone from paying the CEO about $167,000 a year with having a COO, Tom Parker, to a situation where we're now on the brink of paying the COO over $300,000 a year plus a COO if this is passed.
Well, I think, Mr. Pollard, I think you misspoke. You said that you would pay the COO $300,000.
No, I said the interim CEO or the CEO would be getting a salary of over
Yeah.
$300,000, and then also you have to add on the cost of the COO.
I understand your clarification now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I just think we've got to look at this also from the standpoint of the taxpayers, residents, and voters of the district, not just our cozy group and personalities involved. And I just feel that it can't be justified, but that's my personal opinion.
Is there any other further discussion?
well, we're talking about a honey crisp apple compared to a rotting banana. And that's what we're looking at here. You're talking about 8 years ago,
I think you're the honey.
$3.5 million.
It's quite clear.
With $3.5 million in debt a year,
Is there an avocado in
you
there?
know? So we went from $3.5 million in debt to positive break even, and she did it in 9 months. Enough said there.
Now, he spoke a second time without giving the opportunity for others to speak, Madam President and member.
All right, new business, approving regular meeting dates for the calendar year 2020. Resolution 5591219, approving legal holidays for the calendar of the year 2020, right? Mhm.
Right. Madam President, I have a motion.
Yeah, 1219, 1219, 560, 1219, approving amended to lease with King County Search and Rescue. And 4 is designation of excess tax levy monies for calendar year to 2020. And,
Madam President, I have a
yes,
motion.
sir.
I move that item 1, 2, and I think 4 be approved without further discussion.
I second.
Speed things up.
Is there any other discussion? You said without discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would like us to perhaps look at the resolution regarding the lease for the King County Search and Rescue in case there are any questions. I have one question. Otherwise, if somebody could make a motion to approve that, too.
Okay, I make a motion to approve new business resolution number 558-1219, resolution number 559-1219, designation of excess tax levy monies for calendar year 2020.
So that was in my motion. Are you talking now about the search and rescue?
Yes, except for that, we're not approving that yet. You want to discuss
Oh, I
that?
see.
Number 3, correct?
Yeah, I made that motion already,
Okay.
1, 2, and 4.
4.
And so I was leaving out 3 for possible discussion. But that's my motion, is go ahead and approve
I
those 3.
second that motion, and if you are making that motion,
Yes.
I thought.
Okay,
you
is there
needed-
any more discussion about this? Hearing not all those, it's, yeah, we can't.
We
Yeah,
can
we're
because
not-
we have 3.
But we have public comment has to happen first.
Yeah, all you're doing is discussing under new business, and
Yeah.
you're making a motion, it's been
Okay.
seconded. You
Okay.
can discuss, you're just not gonna take a vote till you get down to action.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, all right.
who seconded Jean's motion?
Jim,
I did.
Emma did.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, so what's next?
Shall we advance?
Next would be the other new business you have not yet discussed, and that would be the approval of the addendum to the lease with King County Search and Rescue.
Yeah.
560-1219. Right there, this one.
I believe Emma and I both have talked about, have seen this before, because they came to facilities, and we got information from facilities meeting that they had done some improvements and that they want to continue to be on the property.
I think my question, I can't find the document right now, but my question was, there is a provision there that if the district cancels the lease, that there would be compensation for the improvements that they have made, maybe on a prorated basis, something like
Yeah.
that.
That's
But what is not clear is what if they cancel, what happens to those improvements at that time? Are we obliged to,
No, they revert to the district.
they revert at that point to the district,
Yes.
no further discussion?
That's correct.
Okay, that's good then.
And my understanding is the lease is not changing, it's just the parameters of the length or the option, correct? Is that
Well, it's a whole new lease.
Well, no, it's not, it's just an addendum,
Extension.
and it's only changing one aspect of the lease, and that pertains to the term.
the term, that's what I meant.
The term
Yeah.
did get modified slightly to 2023, that was a clarification, and it'll continue through then unless terminated earlier. And that is the provision Commissioner Pollard just brought to your attention. If you, the lessor landlord, elects to terminate it prior to December 31, 2023, which is the term length, then you would pay for the unamortized tenant improvements over the remainder of the remaining initial term of the expiring contract of 2023.
And they have Verizon.
And everything else is staying the same. That's the only change.
Public comment, do we have any public comment?
Scott Scowcroft, for the record, from West Seattle. This is the end of I don't know if it's an end of an era, but it's the end of something, and next month will be the beginning of something new. So I thought this might be an appropriate time to have a comment or two. As you know, I would have preferred this board to have been courageous and entrepreneurial, but that's just not in your DNA. Instead, you chose to be cautionary and good stewards of the hospital district. It's a different voice than the previous board of directors had, but it's just fine. You're successful. And, you know, we can have two different points of view, and there could be two different paths that could have been both successful, and I think you should be commended for that. But you didn't do it without a lot of effort and hard work. I think Commissioner Spikers has been the leader for this, and Dr. Woodcock has, and prior to Dr. Woodcock, Tom Parker has been very instrumental in bringing you to the point where you are right now. So if Dr. Woodcock is rewarded for that financially, I think that's only appropriate and only fair. And I think the taxpayers would applaud that based upon the good works that have gone up until now. So as a member of the public and someone who's been very keenly watching for the last 10 years, I commend this board for the work that you've done so far, and next month I'll have more to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay. No more public comment. We now have action items. I'm not quite sure how to present these. Do I present them one at a time?
They've been moved and seconded, so you can present those, I believe, on, because Commissioner Pollard made a motion on 1, 3, and 4. You can ask for a vote on those now.
All three together?
Let's see, actually, it wasn't 1, 3, and 4. Under the action items, they are number 2, 3, and 4.
And 5.
2, 3, and 4.
Yep.
2, 3, and 4, correct.
3 and 4.
Okay, so do I hear a second on that motion?
We already had-
They've been moved and seconded. It's under
Okay, so then we just
discussion.
need
Call
to
for the
vote.
question.
You're voting,
Yeah,
call
thank
for
you.
the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we're all right there.
Now, we still need a motion on number 3, don't we?
Well, he
We've
said
done
you
1,
want-
2, and 4.
If you look at action items, you've now done 2, 3,
Three,
and 4.
and
4.
You've not done yet number 1 and number 5, and
Or
number
number
6 has
six.
been
Okay.
removed.
All right,
6 and then
so we got to do that.
Excuse me, the record will reflect on tape that when he made his motion, he stated 1, 2, and 4.
Then we should correct
Because
that.
he was reading under.
Under the new business instead of the action items.
Exactly.
So we should probably correct
I
that,
do
Commissioner
correct it.
Pollard.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's 2, 3, and 5.
So Madam Chair, I think you should inquire further from a maker of a motion as to the action items that they are moving to be approved.
We do have,
Action items that you're approving,
yes, Commissioner
okay,
Pollard?
this would be 2, 3, 4, and
No, 2, 3, and 5.
2, 3, and 5?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, 2, 3, and 5. Right. 2, 3, and 5. I move that. As a motion.
Do I have a
There's-
second?
There is already a motion on the floor for these, and I believe that I second if there
Okay, I
isn't.
thought so,
So
okay.
let's,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, because we're just trying to make sure this is right in the minutes, and Valerie's
Yeah.
making
all
sure.
right, I make a motion for resolution action items, new action items, number 4, approving addendum to lease with King County Search and Rescue,
Yeah.
resolution
Second.
560-1319.
Second.
Any other further discussion? This is for resolution, you said 4, isn't it 3?
No, it's 4 under action items.
Oh, under action items, okay. Yes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So that passes.
Make a motion for resolution number 557-1219, approval of superintendent CEO compensation, which has already been made, by the way, but is amended, but I just want to make sure that it's out there on the table. And
Okay.
I think with your position on that, or your duty now to call for a vote.
All those in favor, do we read the entire as amended? So that it's
You
clear?
should probably,
That's a good
and
idea.
Commissioner Spikers has appropriately made another motion because it was amended in the discussion. So, Madam Chairman, I think you would want a second, and then I can read the amended version.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Having been moved and seconded, this board in their discussion has reviewed resolution number 557-1219 and made two changes to the resolution as presented. It has deleted under the third whereas on page 2 the words "in February 2020." And under the section 3 going over onto page 3, it has removed the words "in the month of February" and put in the next regular pay period. The effect of those two changes have clarified that in the whereas, a payment of 5% bonus would be paid if the district's 2019 year-end published budgeted net income is achieved, and that is further reflected in the implementation of that onto page 3. That is now then the motion before you as has been amended in the resolution 557-1219 before the body for consideration.
Is there any, well, we've got a resolution before us. Have we had a second?
It's been moved and seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes. You can roll call votes.
President Norris,
Yes.
Vice President Barron,
Yes?
Secretary Spikers,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Pollard,
Before I vote, I can say something, as I understand
You
it.
can, yes.
This is nothing personal, and it does not reflect adversely on the efforts of the interim CEO. But we're $100 million in debt, folks. And in the last few years, the salary of the CEO with this change has been doubled. I don't think we're in a position when we're $100 million in debt.
We're not 100 million.
No, we're not on
Let's
the-
go.
We're
Correct that for the record.
96 million, I just rounded off. At any rate, that's in the mind of the public. We're heavily into debt. Other public hospital districts that have been in this position have done serious cutbacks and austerity, and we haven't done enough of that. At any rate, that's why I'm going to vote against this. I think it's irresponsible to be one of the highest paid CEO positions in the state with some of the least services and responsibilities and scope of responsibilities required. So that's my explanation of why I'm going to vote no. Thank you.
Kevin?
Yes.
Commissioner Potley? Yes? Commissioner Spikers?
I already said that.
motion carries.
Oh, good,
You got a
okay.
roll call vote, and the clerk's identified that the motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda. We now have the good of the order for the commissioner comments. Everybody shall have one comment for a period limit of 3 minutes. Oh, yes. I think we do have something first that we need to take care of.
Our comments taking precedence are what you're doing now?
This is the chair's
Prerogative.
prerogative at this point, under the
Yes.
commissioner's due to the order of comments. This would be extending her 3 minutes, which the chair can do.
That's 3
And
minutes.
you do some dancing too.
I got a flash mob dance.
Give me a skirt.
Sure.
we wanted to make sure to take the opportunity to recognize Commissioner Pollard.
Oh, very kind.
So we do thank you, and I'm going to let the president actually gift you.
Jean,
Yes.
I want you to know that you make us, you challenge us, and that is a good thing for all of us. You ask the hard questions, you're there saying things that ruffle our feathers, that make us get upset, but they make us think, and I appreciate that about you. I appreciate that you go outside the boundaries sometimes so that we do a good job. And just having you here has challenged each and every commissioner that has been here and worked with you before me and with me, that you offer something unique. And we can either choose to look at it as something that's a thorn or as a star, and it's a star in my opinion. And we do appreciate you. And on behalf of the hospital district, we have this handsome man here on this picture called Gene Pollard, and it's from your fellow commissioners and Snoqualmie Valley Hospital staff.
That came as a total surprise, and I really thank you for it. Maybe I can make a comment in the 3 minutes possibility. And
We also listened to some of the stories that you told about where you snacked. And so
that's great, thank you.
The favorite places,
Yes, we had a few mice helping us.
I just want to say
Some
that I want the
else there.
hospital to be successful. I just had some different perspectives on how it can be successful. And I really have enjoyed the friendships that I've made among the staff and commissioners, and even David Splackers and I are getting along a little better tonight. So, at any rate, it has been a wonderful opportunity to feel that I contributed something to community service. And I thank all of you for putting up with me, your patience with me. And I admit I'm a little verbose. Sorry about that.
we are, all of us.
Yeah, well, you know, there's an old saying, be yourself, everyone else is taken. So that's something I keep in mind. But let me put it this way. I have tried my best. My conscience is clear. And I wish you Godspeed in the success of the hospital. Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
I'll make my 3-minute comment.
Okay, you go.
I must say, Commissioner Pollard, you were consistent all the way, even to the last minute with your personality.
Sorry.
And that's okay, because we all learn and grow from it.
Thank you.
It's a challenge for all of us. So we all have different personality, but you were consistent all the way to the very end. Right,
you.
Commissioner Sparkers? And I thank you. We thank you for all your services and for your friendship as well, even though you and I always have some disagreements, but we have to agree to disagree. All of us, right? So,
Yes.
and I thank you. I bid you farewell and good health, and God bless you.
Thank
Merry
you so
Christmas.
much. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for the commission. You guys, keep it up now. Work hard.
Well, Commissioner Pollard, it's been 8 years.
Actually,
say that.
David, if you realize.
The
it
first
is-
4, I'm glad I kind of put that in the back of my memory because they were tumultuous. However, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of, I'd say, camaraderie and a lot of hard work by this board, and you had good input in doing what we're doing. Hopefully, we're doing the right things. I believe we are. We may not at all times, but that's what this world is all about, different opinions. So I wish you good luck and good health.
Thanks, David. Just have a cup of coffee sometime.
Bye.
Kevin, did you want to say anything? I know you've been on the board before with Commissioner Pollard. So.
Thank you, yes. I would echo the comments that have been shared already, Gene, and I think that challenging the present thought is always a good thing. And you certainly have done that. And during my prior term and tonight. And there's value in that point, counterpoint, to challenge all of us to grow and achieve best practices, and for those that we serve, to be good stewards of the monies of the district. That said, I had the distinct privilege yesterday of having services provided by this hospital, and I would like to commend the team that serviced me, and it was just a great experience, and it is an absolute honor to be not only back on the Board of Commissioners serving the constituents of the district, but being here in this building and that we all built, and for generations to come to benefit from it. So it's just an absolute honor. Thank you.
Everybody said it. Jean, we're gonna miss you. We are. We're
Well,
gonna
if
miss
you
the
give me
challenges.
if you call me up, I'll come down.
Yeah. You've left a footprint here.
I don't want you to suffer too much.
You'll always have 3 minutes.
We're not gonna measure, you're gonna be here.
Okay, our next work study is scheduled for Wednesday, December 25th.
Canceled.
That's been canceled.
Thank God.
Didn't read the whole line. Affiliation work study will be Thursday, January 9th, 2020. That sounds odd to say. 4:30 to 6 p.m. East-West Conference Room. Monthly business meeting will be Thursday, January 9th, 2020 at 6:30 in the East-West Conference Room. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Prior to adjournment, can I have just a point of privilege, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to extend my appreciation to Commissioner Pollard as well. One of the things I've really learned now is Robert's rules.
Look
And
at
I've gone,
I got the exact same.
I know you do. That's why mine's marked up, because I know you'll question me if I don't get it right. So I just wanted to thank you, Commissioner Pollard, and
The smaller one, yeah, the yellow one. Yeah.
share with you one more comment, Commissioner Pollard. I think it's been 4 years ago or so when I started coming up here, and we talked about a class called governance, and you'll remember that, fiduciary duties and obligations and governance. And one of the things that I was closing that class with was talking about a speech that John F. Kennedy never gave. He had written it, but never gave the opportunity. He was going to be at Dallas and give that speech in November of 1963, as you'll recall. And that speech was going to be given to a community college. It was going to be opening. And he was going to address the audience and say, we all need to be lifelong learners. And Commissioner Pollard, you epitomized that for me. To be at your age and your experience and your history, to still want to be a lifelong learner. And you come prepared, you come with comments that you've read or looked up or researched. I don't always agree with them, but I really appreciate that, because you are, I think, a living example of a lifelong learner. And so congratulations on your service. Thank you, Madam President.
I would just add one thing. That was the motto of my University of California, lifelong learning. And so maybe that got into my. But I would suggest then, as my final, hopefully constructive suggestion, that the new commissioners get a copy of Robert's Rules, 11th edition, newly revised, which I received when I first came on the board. Kevin just mentioned it, I think he might have received it, but let's make sure that new commissioners get that to refer to. We can't always have Skip Hauser.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes?
Motion to adjourn.